Hello, everyone. Today I'm by myself, and that's very unusual, as Steve and I always record matters together. But the topics that we're discussing today are ones that he has asked me to record for a very long time. I'm very passionate about it because each time I teach these topics of honor and reputation, it is amazing what I learn about myself. So today, when I'm speaking, I'm excited to also find out what journey this message will take me on personally. We're going to talk about reputation, and then we're going to discuss honor. We will discuss reputation personally, and then we'll discuss reputation professionally. Personally is kind of obvious, and so we'll break that down and just discuss some of the obvious things that fall under personal reputation. And then we'll spend most of our time discussing the professional side of it, which we'll break down as customer, teammate, and leadership. And of course, we'll refer to our customer when we're discussing that as guest. Let's talk about the reputation that we all have. Personally, we have a reputation as a child. We have a reputation as a parent, if we're a parent. We have a reputation as a sibling. Well, let's just talk about that in an immediate family. Were we the high-maintenance child growing up or the low-maintenance child? And usually that maintenance carries with us the rest of our lives. Were we one that were eager to study or one that our parents had to push us to open a book? Were we on time? Were we late? Were we organized? Were we not organized? What were our disciplines as a child? Ask our parents and they'll tell us a little story about our reputation in our family. We have a reputation to extended family as well, to cousins and aunts and uncles and grandparents. And when you take a look at those obligations to extended family, you have a reputation when it comes to joining a family celebration, maybe a reputation when it comes to cleanup after a family celebration. Certainly I have family members that enjoy the dining experience as a family very much, but then they retreat to the football game and everyone else is left to clean up the mess. That's a little funny for my family members that are listening. When you take a look at personal reputation, and we take a look at the other reputation that you have personally, you have a reputation in your neighborhood. Steve and I are known as the family that's never here. We're the disappearing neighbors because we're not home that often. We have a reputation as community members, philanthropic efforts. Are we involved in our local charities? How many people count on us? What is your reputation in your church? Are you part of the team that takes care of families, or are you part of the team that the church has to take care of you? So we all have a reputation. And is yours one that's easy to be around or a reputation that's difficult? Are you high maintenance? Are you low maintenance? And the one reputation I didn't talk about, which is probably the one I should be talking about, and it's probably the journey I'll learn today, is even what is your reputation as a spouse? So when we think about that, what are we supposed to learn when we analyze reputation? I think the biggest question is, what do we want other people to think of us? And what do we want our reputation to be in the people that we love most and that love us most? And then the extended relationships, what do they want our reputation to be? The one that I enjoy talking about also is a reputation as a friend. My best friend and I have been friends since we were 10 years old, so we're going on 38 years of best friendship. And I equate friendships to business oftentimes because it's so funny. Those of you that are listening right now, you might be thinking about a friend that you need to call. But what happens is a month will go by, and you go, you know what, I really should call Cheryl. I should really pick up the phone and call her tonight. But you know, it's been a month. I feel bad I haven't called. Well, then I just won't call. So we don't call. Then we wait, and 3 months have gone by. And we go, oh my gosh, I miss her. I need to pick up the phone, but how do I apologize for not talking to her the last 3 months? Pretty soon, people have years that go by, and they lost contact with a relationship that meant the world to them. And I always talk about that at PSC too, because that really holds true in business. When you've got a customer that you're comfortable around, and all of a sudden you don't see them, and you want to see them, but you're You're afraid to pick up the phone and say, hey, customer, I miss you. I haven't picked up the phone and phoned you to see how you're doing. Now all of a sudden it's 3 months, all of a sudden it's 6 months, all of a sudden it's a year. You lose that customer that was very important to you, and all you had to do was make the first move. All that falls under reputation. And sometimes in a reputation, you have to fight harder than the other person if it really means a great deal to you. I like that, and I like discussing that in the beauty industry, because how many customers have we really taken care of in our careers? And how many have gone away and we didn't fight to keep them? We just let them go away. Business is about fighting hard, and business is about protecting the reputation. So many people say, well, I don't want people to think I'm desperate. You know what? Business is all desperate. And in these trying times right now, we should know that at the top of our voices. With the way the world is going right now, and the fuel charges and the food costs and everything else that we're going through, we've got to stand out and even be better than we've ever been before to keep a customer. The customer has to be very, very wise when they're making their decision to do business with people and places. And if we don't stand out, they're going to pass us by. So take that message in itself very, very seriously. People always say, I don't want to be desperate. My goodness, there wouldn't be commercials on TV if businesses weren't desperate. They're always trying to be the last one in someone's mind so they can fight for the sale. And what that means is you have to make sure that you're always present to what the customer needs, and that you always let them know how important they are to you, and that you're going to fight for their business. You're going to fight hard to be at your best. Now, what does that mean, being at your best? You know, when you think about a relationship with a customer and a guest, actually, when you think about that, what does it really, really take? Now, we're on the professional side now, so let's do the obvious ones. Remember I said earlier, it's going to be about the guest's perception of you, your teammates' perception of you, and leadership's perception of you. So we're going to talk about the guests now. I have had, in the last 3 or 4 weeks, some of the worst service I've ever had in my lifetime. Now, these aren't places that are really looking for my loyalty every 5 weeks. So I cut them a little slack because they themselves aren't in demand to keep a customer, whether it's at a grocery store or at a clothing boutique. They're not fighting hard to keep a customer. But you know what? In our industry, we have to be great because we want them to return to us every 5 weeks. We can't afford to look sloppy, not once. There's an expression that we use all the time is, today's performance is tomorrow's traffic. So what I'm doing today is either going to say, please return, or I'm giving you permission to go somewhere else. When I look at the customer's perception of us, the guest's perception of us, and what our reputation is, let's think about what they're thinking. They're thinking of your reputation in your dialogue, your reputation in image, punctuality, sanitation of your station, chairside manner, professional recommendation, your technical skills. They're looking at your care factor for them, the pace in which you serve, your description of how you're announcing the service that you're performing to them, your take-home recommendation, your professional recommendation period on all aspects of the salon, your endorsement of other service personnel. They want to hear that because they will go to someone that you say you've got to have this service. You have to enjoy it. They're looking for all of those things from you. Now, if you run late, if you are someone who is always rushing because you're squeezing other guests in, when you squeeze a guest in, it's the expense of everyone in your day. We think that we're performing better service for one, but really it's at the expense of all. And so when you take a look at that and say, I'm just going to squeeze this person in, they really need me, what is your reputation to the other guests that you served that day? That they got less than what they expected from you. There's a big difference between what the guest expects and what they experience. My goodness, I'm in the industry, and every time I have to have a haircut or have to have color, there's an expectation of the service and how I'm going to look and feel after I receive those services. If someone misses the mark, I'm disappointed. And I'm in the industry. So if someone misses the mark with me and I'm not of the industry, how is it likely that I'll want to return? So many times we get one chance at wowing a guest, but we have to have that chance every single time they're in the salon. So what is our reputation? The biggest part that the guest critiques of our reputation is what we talk about. We are our conversation. And if there is a weakness in our industry, it's about taking those conversations to inappropriate places during the service. And I know so many of you think that these guests are your friends. I mean, this is a friendly business, but they're not your friends. And so many people are not going to want to tell the person that has scissors in their hand, you know, I'm a little uncomfortable with this conversation. Oh yeah, I'll just snip your hair off. They're not going to do that. So they're going to keep the conversation very light, but make no mistake, they're judging you. These inappropriate conversations are ruling our industry. And it's unfortunate because then our whole industry's reputation is judged on unprofessional dialogue. When I think about 45 minutes or an hour and a half of time with another female or a guest, that's a lot of time to have conversation go back and forth very easily. I understand that. However, I would probably make up a list of things I can talk about that fall under acceptable dialogue versus unacceptable dialogue. I was with a young lady one time at Visible Changes in Houston, and this was years and years ago. And through my consulting all my life, I'm known for a person that's always asking questions. And in typical fashion back then, I remember I was at the shampoo bowl, and I was introduced to the young lady, and she started to deliver the service at the shampoo bowl and gave me a professional recommendation on a treatment for my hair. And I looked up and said, well, how did you make the decision to go to beauty school? And she answered. And then I think I asked another question, and she said, Terry, I'm so flattered that you want to talk about me. But this time is all about you. And it's my job to make sure that you enjoy the experience at Visible Changes and you're able to take advantage of everything that we have to offer to you here. And I was so blown away by the maturity and the dialogue that she presented to me that I thought, absolutely, this is an escape for me. This is an oasis. This isn't time for me to work. It's time for me to enjoy the service. And so what I was so impressed with is how she flipped the conversation, not in a negative way, not in a reprimand. She turned it around that it benefited me to talk only about me. She didn't say, I'd rather not talk about me today, thank you, and just shut up. She turned it around by saying, I'm flattered, but this time is about you. And it was so soothing how the transfer happened. Now, how often are we in the salon and people are asking us about our personal lives because maybe they're asking about your personal life or you're offering it because the conversation was stale and uncomfortable, so they thought, I'm going to try to turn it on something else right now. Make sure that you've got the dialogue that says, I'm so flattered that you want to talk about me, but I really want to talk about you today. And even when the customer's conversation becomes inappropriate, you need to say to them, other guests may be listening, they could be uncomfortable with our conversation. These aren't family rooms. These are professional environments, and we have to make sure that the conversation always lends itself to what we want the guest perception to be of us personally and our salon. The next part is our teammates. What's our teammates' perception of us? We once had a great star employee at PSC. His work was very, very good. His work was very, very good only though in one part of the business. He was terrific with his customers, but with his teammates he was very, very disrespectful. So he had a reputation with his guests that was very good, but internally it wasn't that good. How about you? What is your reputation? And I know the customer pays the bills. I understand that. I mean, there's an expression that holds true to my heart all the time. The customer is the profit, and all of us who work are the overhead. So I understand that. However, make sure that your reputation with your teammates is strong also, because it takes a team to wow a customer. There's very few businesses that have one person working in it that can really wow a guest. It takes a team of people and multiple relationships to accomplish that. If I'm a teammate that enjoys working with you, I'm going to encourage my guests to get to know you as well. If I'm a teammate that doesn't enjoy working with you, I probably create a privacy line of some sort there. And I probably wouldn't endorse your services to my guests. When it takes a village or a team to wow a customer, that's absolutely true. So what is your reputation with your teammates? Let's talk about your punctuality. Talk about attendance. Drama factor. The drama that's taken place in life. I don't know what's happened, but the world's become so cynical. If you ask someone how their vacation was, they talk about all the bad. And I always think, but you were on vacation, you weren't working. At least you were on vacation. You talk to people about flights, and they'll say, the first thing is, well, my flight was delayed. Well, what's the alternative? To not have it delayed and have something happen in the air? You arrived home safely. It was an inconvenience, but you're safe. So people's conversation sometimes is they start with the negative, and you only want to be around that for a short period of time. The sky is falling some days, but not every day. And I can tell you, even at PSC, when someone has a bad day, and I'm one of them, the thing that I like to say is, someone make me laugh today, because if I'm laughing, it's very difficult for me to be angry or think about what I'm stressed about. Stress is usually the thing that throws me for a loop. So therefore, stress means change something, or it's change trying to take place, and I won't let it. So what is your reputation as a teammate? Talk about sanitation. Are you someone that picks up after yourself? Do you also take care of the salon that you work in, or everyone else you expect to do that? I don't care how long you've worked there. If you work there, you're responsible for contributing to the sanitation and the look of the salon. It's not just left for assistants. And you might have paid that price years ago as an assistant, so you think it's only fair that the same holds true to the assistants that are on staff. However, it's part of your reputation now that you no longer contribute to the full salon, only to yourself. What about education? Do you show up for things? Do you ask that the scorecard of teammate be different for you than everyone else? What is your performance? Are you full out? Do you hold back a little bit? Do you ask that a schedule is only convenient for you versus the business? What is your reputation with the front desk staff? Can I tell you something? I don't know who in their right mind would alienate a relationship with the front desk staff. These people control your livelihood. And I would want them rooting for me, not rooting against me. When there's errors or squeeze-ins or something happens, if it's every day, then let's have a meeting and say, look, our system's not working. But personal attacks to the front desk staff, they would never hurt you on purpose unless you gave them ammunition to do so. So really evaluate, what is your reputation with every division of the salon? Reputation as far as image, do you follow the rules? Do you always fight the system? Is your image one that everyone says borderline? Do you arrive to the salon with your hair done and makeup done, or you believe that the salon is an extension of your powder room at home and you continually get dressed while you're there? Do you have to have every guest announced, even though you know your schedule in advance? Do people have to look for you? Do you step out of the salon because you don't have a guest versus seeing what you can do to help someone else? Are you a smoker, so therefore you think you're entitled to more breaks? Every one of you has a reputation. Now let's talk about the good side. Are you the person that's always giving the extras? Are you the person that's always cleaning up because you're a neat freak? Are you someone that's always helping the front desk staff and they rely on you? You can have that kind of reputation too. Are you someone that's always early? Steve's daughter, Erin, I'm so impressed with her disciplines of being on time. She's a family member that's either early or on time, never late. How impressive is that, to have a reputation like that at 22 years old? I can't say the same for myself. That's not one of mine, so it very much impresses me when people have that kind of discipline. When people talk about you in a positive fashion, it feels good. And so if you don't know your reputation with your teammates, I'm going to venture to say you do. But if you don't, ask someone. Ask someone that you would really trust in the salon to be absolutely honest with you. The next part is, how is our reputation with leadership? Are we coachable? Are we easy to lead? Are we someone that we just ask leadership to leave us alone? I don't ever want to work for someone, and I hope that you feel the same, that you don't want to work with someone that they're hooked on the income you bring to the salon versus enjoy your presence working as part of their team. I hope that you add value every single day, and people, ask your leaders, are you still grateful that I'm part of your team? And what can I do? What extra do you need from me to even make my reputation with leadership even better? I'm going to talk more about honoring leadership later on when I go into the 7 steps of honor. However, leadership sometimes will avoid people that their first response is negative. They just avoid them. They stay away. Leadership sometimes needs to brainstorm out loud with anyone close. And the last thing I want to do when I'm brainstorming as a leader is I don't even have the words out of my mouth yet, the idea completely stated before someone is saying, that's not going to work. Now, when you take a look at the salon industry and about romancing the customer, the first thing that needs to be done is always think of new ideas. So leadership needs people around them that doesn't fight the system, but embraces it. The biggest thing about leadership is, gosh, I don't care that you disagree. I think it's good that you disagree with leadership sometimes. Because sometimes we disagree with leadership without knowing all the facts, so I'm okay with that. But disagree with leadership to my face. Don't disagree with leadership behind my back and build a camp. For someone to say to me, gosh, that one didn't feel good, how did you make that decision? I'm okay with that. And then I can explain it to them and say, I took into consideration all the factors here, and this is how I made the decision, and I need your support. Versus me having to put out 50 fires in the process of the wake that was created as people started discussing it and then created a mutiny. All right, so that's what we talked about as far as reputation. What is yours? What do you need to work on? What do you need to find out about yourself? What quick changes can you make, even if they're 10% shifts? And enjoy the ride on that. Something that we discuss from the platform all the time that many of you stylists might not be aware of is to pay different commission for a reputation client versus one that the individual stylist is keeping and getting on their own. Let's talk about the difference. A reputation guest is a salon's reputation customer that, based on the overflow from other stylists and the owner, we're filling your chair. The individual, an established guest, or a new request is one that the stylist themselves' reputation is creating, and as a result, I'm going to pay a higher commission for those guests and a lower commission when I have to fill your chair if you haven't filled it on your own. That's just good business. See how strongly reputation can play into all facets of the business? When Robert Cromings and I talk about this in great detail, he even takes it a step further with his rising stars. He'll say, I love your creativity, I love your image, I love your individual charisma and creative way you're presenting yourself. However, until you build your own reputation in my salon, I need you to tone that look down a little bit. Robert didn't always dress the way Robert does today. Thank goodness he didn't always dress the way he does today. That's a little funny. He is a product of all of his years in the industry, and his creativity was able to come out and be embraced by everyone after he built his reputation. In the salon, your tattooing, piercing, avant-garde style is fine, but it could turn some of the people in the community off at first, so you might want to have more of a classic look until you build your reputation, have a following, and then your customers will embrace your creative style. So keep that in mind. That's not asking anyone to be less than who they are. It's saying, why would you want to slow down success because of your look just because the customer doesn't understand it? Most people don't look like hairdressers. Hairdressers are always on the cutting edge. They always are ahead of fashion, or certainly in line with it. And many of our customers we know are behind the times, and we're trying to bring them current. So don't slow down success because your image turns people off because it's too aggressive and too ahead of times for them. The other thing I want to talk about as far as reputation goes, please be careful when you are a person working in the community that's trying to work in a community and have a following in a community when your behavior could be questioned socially. And what I say to people, if you want to swing on the bars or you want to swing on the poles, make sure you go 100 miles away from the community that you're trying to attract guests in. That's a little bit exaggerated, but I hope the point is made that when you're trying to establish yourself in the community, you have to make sure that you're not giving permission for the guests not to follow you because some of your actions could be misunderstood or think that they're a little bit too liberal for some of the guests that would be sitting in your chair. Small communities talk, and I know we have listeners from small communities. Big communities talk too, so protect your reputation and your actions. All right, the delicate topic now. Some of you may be listening and saying, you know what, I really don't care about my reputation. What I am is what I am. Well, that's fine and dandy. And once again, I'm going to state to you that Steve and I have witnessed fabulous technical hairdressers that couldn't make it in this business. And there has to be a reason they couldn't make it. And remember, dialogue and how we carry ourselves falls very closely in line with reputation. I was teaching a class just recently, and I had a young lady walk up to me, and she said, I just need you to know I am a very cold person, and I just really don't care. I'm a cold person, and that's just who I am, and people know that's how I am, and if they don't like it. And I looked at her, and I said, how are you going to warm that up? Because our salon isn't a cold industry. This is some of the brightest people there are. How are you going to warm that up? And she said, well, I'm just cold. That's just how I am. And I said, why did you choose our industry? I must have said, how are you going to warm that up 10 times? And my fear is that she didn't get it that day while I was talking to her. That she really thought that her chatter about herself being cold, it's almost like she was wearing a banner, I'm cold and I'm proud of it, that would work and she would attract a customer base that way. That's not going to happen. Now, that's a dramatic example, but what happens if some of you say, I'm late all the time and that's just how I am, and people know that's how I am? You're going to have difficulty in this business making it. Whenever I have an owner that calls me and says, look, this girl has all the goods. She is a natural hairdresser, but she's fighting for every customer to return. I immediately start saying, dissect every part of who she is, from her image to her voice, to her scent, to her conversation. Dissect any of it, every part of it, because obviously her reputation isn't one that the customer is embracing. Even if you don't want to change, I understand that. However, if you're going to make it in this industry, you've got to make the changes necessary to make it. Now on to the 7 steps of honor. I love talking about this. I love talking about this, especially with a brand new person just making the decision to join our industry and someone who has lived a lifetime in our industry, and see what both of their reactions are to these topics. I'm going to talk about the 7, and then I'll dissect them one by one. The 7 steps are honoring your craft, honoring the industry, the guest or the customer, teammates, the salon, leadership, and the salon owner. Okay, let's start. Honoring your craft. There's not much on this one, but to say this. Every single day, how you honor your craft is by knowing that it's still the best decision that you ever made. Best decision you ever made. I've been in salons where I've heard people say, you know what, I just heard my daughter's thinking about going to beauty school, or my niece is thinking about going to beauty school. And I've literally heard hairdressers say, oh my gosh, tell her not to do it. Tell her not to do it. I wish I wouldn't have done it, but now it's the only thing I know, so I have to do it. That's not honoring your craft. For us to change the perception of people's ideals about what we do and how we do it and who we do it for means that we have to talk about it in such a positive way. Our friend Gino Stampora says this from the platform, and the first time I heard it, I thought, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. When Gino's done talking to someone about what he does as a hairdresser, only two things should happen from that conversation. One, his conversation was so captivating they want to be a hairdresser too. Or two, they want him to perform his craft on them. That's what Gino's goal is every time he talks about what he does with someone. And isn't that brilliant? Can you imagine coming home and saying, oh, I hate it? What family member is going to want to follow in those footsteps? So to honor your craft, it's the best decision that you ever made. And if you talk to Gino, he'll still say that to this day. He left the professional arena, did it on a whim. At 24 years old, I believe, he went home and told his family, I'm going to beauty school, and he got a lot of flack for it. But to this day, best decision he ever made. So that's how we honor our craft. This falls beautifully into the next level, which is how do you honor your customer? First, by being the expert that we just talked about in your industry, that they know that you know, and that you'll guide them in a beautiful fashion. Also, how do you honor the customer? By being there, by absolutely being there and loving what you do. The guest wants you to be an expert, and they want so desperately to know that you love what you do, that you love who you're doing it for, and love who you're doing it with. And when you have those things in place, the customer feels like they're in good hands. There's nothing better to know that you're safe and to know that you've made a great decision on where you're trusting people with your image. I remember when Steve's parents both were ailing, and we lost both of them in a very short period of time. They both left us 2 years apart, and they both were in need of a cardiologist, and our cardiologist was Dr. DiGirolamo. And I'll never forget the day that Steve came home and he said, I have such peace today. And I know that we're going to have more time with my mom and dad. And he said, I just feel it. And he was just talking and I was listening. And what he was talking about was how much Dr. DiGirolamo, with his words, with him being the expert, and him saying to Steve's family, I was born to be a cardiologist. Even if I won the lottery today, I would still do this every single day because I love what I do and I love who I do it for. And my goodness, isn't that how you honor a customer? And in Dr. DiGirolamo's case, isn't that how you honor the patient? What family in their right mind would want to go to someone else when they know that they're having that kind of care from that kind of doctor? And just seeing the peace that it provided Steve and his sisters was amazing, because Dr. DiGirolamo was so present to them and so present to what the needs of the family were, and knew what he had to say to make sure that they understood how much of the expert he was. It's one thing to be an expert. It's another to have the dialogue that supports that. See, a customer doesn't know that you're an expert just because you pick up a pair of scissors or that you know how to apply color. They want to hear you state that to them. And that's how you honor them, by speaking about what you do in such a high-touch way. How do we honor our industry? The first part of honoring our industry is kind of honoring our craft. We don't want people in here that don't love what they're doing, because that just makes a mess out of things. But to be absolutely the expert in our industry. All of you who are listening should have some kind of trade magazine sent to your home. You should have a subscription yourself. It should be a subscription that arrives, and when it arrives, the family all says, Mom, Dad, your Salon Today or American or Modern Salon arrived at the house. They know that you need that little quiet time in your industry. I'm so surprised how many people in the industry that work in salons don't know who owns what companies in the industry. that they don't know who the headliners are for the industry, that they don't know the world famous hairdressers and the headliners. They've never heard of people before. They don't even know the brands that they represent. So to honor your industry, you must become the expert. I certainly hope that if I ever need brain surgery, God forbid, that the doctor I go to still loves being a brain surgeon, number one, and gets Brains Today magazine still delivered to his house. Now, I know that's a little funny. However, and I hope you're laughing, when you do this by yourself, I have to pretend you're laughing out there when I'm talking. But can you imagine if he said, oh gosh, being a brain surgeon, the most ridiculous decision I ever made, but it's the only thing I know now. The second thing is, I don't get Brains Today anymore because nothing ever changes and it's all the same stuff. So the last time I got Brains Today was 15 years ago. Things are always changing. And I want the people that I trust me with. I don't care if it's my brains and my skull or it's my hair and my color. I want people to be current. I want them to be the expert at their craft. I certainly try in my company to be the expert at what I do for all the people that trust me with their worries in the salon industry, and for Steve and I to guide our customers in the right way. They expect us to be the expert. And the same holds true for your customers. Okay, the next one. How do you honor your teammates? This is a big one because I think that when you honor your teammates, the biggest thing is to be full out. I know that when I'm on a project, gosh, you can ask my staff, they probably would say, she's almost a little bit too intense. When I'm going to put my stamp on things, this is just me talking individually, and then I want to talk about Stephanie Kachowski a little bit. When I put my stamp on things, I want people to know I was there. I want them to know that she's not going to come in and give you 10% on this project. I'm one of those people that if I can't give it all to you, I probably would delay it a little bit. But if my stamp is on it, it's done right, it's up to my standard and to my taste level. And I want my staff to know I'll be full out on this project. We did a great project together as a team last week, and some people thought it was going to take days and days and days. And what we accomplished as a group in 6 hours was absolutely amazing to me, what we got done with focus, with everyone being full out, having high energy, high fun. It was a project no one would want to tackle on purpose. But we came at it and said, look, this is what we want to devote to it. Let's go. Let's create some energy, and let's make a difference today. Knowing that you're full out for other people is a greatest gift you can give a fellow teammate. They want to know that they can count on you, that your attendance and punctuality and your work and your hustle and your giddy up. There's nothing worse than to work with someone lazy or who has slow step or is so deliberate and takes an hour to accomplish anything. Sometimes at my age, and I'll be 48 this summer, there's no way that I should be able to outperform in speed and in enthusiasm and in energy to a 20-year-old. I shouldn't be able to run circles around anyone like that. So what's the first thing I'm going to think of when I can out-hustle someone who's that much younger than me? Is that they're lazy and that they don't care. So how do you honor your teammates? What is your fight and your hustle and your giddy up that you're giving that business every day? And what can they count on from you? Do you speed the business up because of your presence, or do you slow it down? Are you one that gives energy to the business and to the teammates, or do you suck it right out of them? And how do you honor your teammates is to let them know that you're going to give more life to the business just because of your presence. Stephanie Kachowski is a dear friend of mine and a mentor of mine. I love Stephanie's story about growing up in New Jersey and making the decision to go to beauty school. And Stephanie has some of the most outstanding disciplines I've ever seen as a hairdresser. I've watched her work in her salon. I've certainly watched her work backstage when she doesn't even know I've been watching her. And I can tell you that when Stephanie and I have had conversations about our youth, both starting working when we were 12 years old, I bussed tables, and Stephanie was working as a chambermaid in a local motel. To this day, she talks about this story because she said, I was the fastest chambermaid and the best chambermaid that business ever had. And the boss said to me always, you have a job here anytime you want it. We had all day to get it done. we were paid based on not time, but job completion. And Stephanie said, listen, I wasn't going to stand around and make a job I can get done in 6 hours, 8 hours, or a job I could get done in 5, in 8. Why would I do that? I'm going to hustle, get it done, make sure it's to the best of my ability, and then I can enjoy the rest of my day. That's just how Stephanie approaches things. There's no wonder. No one has to wonder why Stephanie has accomplished greatness in our industry because of how she decides to go after her signature on things. Has to have her standard, her speed, her urgency, and her giddy up. And some of us, all of us, every single day could learn great lessons from Stephanie and how she carries herself and how she tackles this salon industry in her mind. The next one is, how do you honor the salon? If you work there, you must contribute there, period. You must contribute. There's some people say, you know what, I don't want to be bothered. I just want to do my guest and get in and get out. There's businesses that have opened that in 2 years look terrible. How does that happen? Right now at PSC, we're making a business that's old and tired, still look acceptable, because every team member takes on the responsibility that we have a standard we have to protect until we can get in a place that is larger for us. But it doesn't mean just because we're moving, we can look like slobs. Someday we'll move, but we have to protect what is right now. When a guest walks into our locations, I don't want them to ever have to think that we don't protect the place that we call home. It's every team member's responsibility to protect the assets and the look of our business. And I've gone into salons that are absolutely filthy. And I can tell right there that there's a breakdown in teamwork when people don't honor the salon. How do we honor the assets? Are we overusing color? Are we sloppy? Are we cleaning up after ourselves? Are we part of the waste problem in the business? Excess waste, which is just throwing profit down the drain. How do we protect that salon? I remember growing up that we had chores. And I've been interviewing people lately that are much younger than myself. And one of the questions I asked her in the interview is, tell me about the chores that you had growing up. And sometimes I'm getting looks like I have 5 heads. Chores, I don't know what you're talking about. Did you have chores? No. Did you have to make your bed? No. Did you have to have cleaning responsibility around the house? No. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? Saturdays in our house is you woke up and you went to work until the general, my mother, dismissed you. I mean, I had the bathrooms, and I can remember the bathrooms for sure, because I used Comet everywhere. I just remember it looking like a big dust cloud, just throw it in there. The person that had to take a bath after I cleaned the bathrooms, it had to have felt like sandpaper on the bottom of that tub after I was done cleaning it the first time. But Chrissy had all the dusting. I think we both had vacuuming. The boys had the outdoors. Everything had to be picked up and in its place. And then she'd say, go enjoy it. It wasn't an option for you to be home on Saturdays to do our chores. And when she would say, go enjoy the weekend, we knew we could without regret. God forbid you miss Saturday morning cleaning. Now, if you don't have the disciplines to do that, you wouldn't be able to see that in the salon that you're working at. I really believe sometimes that people don't know they're slobs. They don't even realize that they don't push a chair back in, or they don't pick up after themselves, that they left lunch there on the table. They just don't even know it. The color bowls that are absolutely trashed, or they just throw them in the sink, expecting the magic shampoo fairy to come back and clean all that up. When we work there, it's how do we look from the time that we open to the time that we close. Some salons think it's okay just to look good at closing time. You've got to look good all the time. And how do the shelves look? It's everyone's responsibility for the shelves, not just the front desk. It's everyone's responsibility how the magazines look on the front table. It's a team's responsibility. So how do you honor the salon is how you contribute and how you take care of home base. I've walked into businesses before where there is the front carpet's all crooked. The staff just walks over it, or there's a big lump in the front carpet, and people just walk over it. And maybe I was trained by someone different. Maybe my first boss, Mr. Jones at Hale's Restaurant in the little town I grew up in, said, fix the carpet. So I was trained to look for it. I don't know. I fix other businesses' carpet when I walk in sometimes, not just PSC's. So you've got to learn to have a very high pay attention factor. And you have to say, that's acceptable, that isn't. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to encourage my teammates to do it. This is how we protect home base. Next one is, how do we honor leadership? And I touched on it a little bit in reputation, but let's take it a little bit further. There's days that being the leader isn't easy. And the greatest gift that my staff gives to us and to all the leaders in our company is loyalty. Loyalty is something that I think people take very lightly today. What is loyalty? I think that even in my friendships, I'm intensely loyal to them. And I think that my husband never has to worry about loyalty. There's loyalty involved. Loyalty in friendships, loyalty to family, loyalty to our guest, but loyalty to leadership. That's not always easy because leadership is almost the keeper of the rules. And it's not an easy position to have because it's not always the most popular. Once again, it's easy to lead when you know people are loyal. And one of the things that I always think about, and I hope that I ask our team, is that you might not like all of the decisions that we have, but please don't ever question our intentions. Our intention is never to create an uncomfortable moment for anybody. And we have to take the entire organization into consideration when we make decisions. Leadership is one that, once again, we tell them how their decisions affect us personally. Don't ever say, I'm in here and we all feel the same way. If anyone starts a conversation like that, I'm almost tuned out because I'm trying to think of all the other people that they say we all feel the same way. So is it Ethel, Mary, Jones? And I'm not even listening. So whenever you talk to leadership, talk on behalf of yourself and talk before you have a consensus from everybody else. That's really important. And once again, I can say, you know what? I'm so glad you came to me. I know that decision doesn't feel good because I heard you and you just told me that. This is why we made the decision. I'll look at it again, but it's based on everyone, not just one or one division. An owner might have to make a decision because of the spa. The owner might have to make a decision because of nails. Owner might have to make a decision, or leadership might have to make a decision based on cost. You don't know all those factors, nor should you. You don't need to be caught up in that. Your job is to be the technician, the service provider, and to really wow the guest. And trust leadership's intention to put systems in place so you can lead the guest with ease. It's not always about our convenience. It's about the customer's convenience. Once again, we are the profit and the customer is the overhead. So leadership has to make decisions based on the profit that sometimes the overhead side doesn't like, nor does it feel good. But to give them loyalty and support is huge. This is going to be a little side note, but it's kind of a thing I want to talk about, loyalty. Growing up, and most of the women are going to understand this part of the conversation more than the men, but growing up, and Cheryl and I stated that early in our conversation, have been friends for 38 years. If Cheryl was interested in someone, I don't care if it was in junior high or high school, that guy then was off limits to me forever because my loyalty to her was more important than this gentleman. Now, there's girls that carried themselves very differently in school that would, regardless if their best friend liked someone, they'd like them too. And those friendships were always sabotaged as a result of that. Some people don't understand loyalty and the cost of not being loyal. What does it cost? I'll give you an example of that. Now let's take the girlfriend example because I know a lot of women are going to understand that part of the conversation. And let's apply that over on the other side to leadership. If leadership states this, whether it's dress code or anything else, or let's take a bigger one. I hear of a walkout. I hear of someone getting ready to leave and open up their own salon, and they're even trying to recruit me. What do I do with it? And if I'm really, really loyal to the place I'm working right now, I have a conversation with my leader and my owner about that. I wouldn't be more loyal to the person that's leaving our organization by keeping that secret to the people that don't know, who are taking care of me and building a family in my salon. Does that make sense? I hope so. The next one we're going to discuss is honoring the owner. And we took a little break right before we started this topic because I'm sitting with Bud, one of our team members, for over 20 years, and he was able to provide some great insight on this one because it's very difficult to say, what are we looking for? When I think about our team, it's a wonderful topic to talk about because we're so proud of what they do and how they do it. And let me explain that to you. Let me talk about how they honor Steve and myself when we're not present in the business or even when we're there. We know that they have our back. We know that they're going to protect PSC's reputation in the industry, something we're very proud of. We tell the truth, we tell it for the right reasons, we fight for the right causes, and our staff understands that, and they also are very protective of our reputation and our cause as a company. One of the things Bud just said to me is, our team honors you by leading and being a leader when we're not present. Everyone realizes their responsibilities. So as a result, they bring their game up even when we're not around. And that's very important. I don't want the business to look differently just because we're not present to it. Some of that's going to happen just because it's just natural. However, to know that PSC can exist even when we're not present is a compliment that our staff pays us on a daily basis. They honor our reputation in the industry, I said that, and their conversation about who we are and what we do and who we do it for is very much consistent with the message that Steve and I state out loud ourselves. They honor our system, they don't mess with it, they know the system's in place to add confidence, and it ties back to the reputation we have with our guests. If someone messes with the system, it's going to create a breach of service somewhere. So we honor the system so it protects the guest perception of who we are and how we carry ourselves and what our reputation is. PSC's team, of course, protects the assets. The owner carries all the risk, more than you probably even realize. In some cases, their whole personal wealth is attached to this business and the dream of it being successful. One of the things that I love to have people say to their owners is thank you for believing so much that you made this possible for us. Thank you for taking the risk to have this dream come true for you and for us to be a part of that dream. And sometimes we have staff and owners not even talking to each other. That doesn't work. That certainly doesn't fall in the 7 steps of honor. We all have to realize the risk and the effort and the fight it takes to be successful in business. And how you honor the owner with the things that were stated is by honoring their decision making. I always say to my staff, especially the new ones that start, try to just figure out how we think at first. How we think, how we make our decisions, why we have the systems in place. Don't try to change anything. Don't try to question anything yet. We'll love your ideas if you can plus them. But your job right now is to figure out how we as a company and organization think. Another great way to honor the owner is to make sure your effort is 100%. We know when we're at 50% days. I know when I'm under the weather. My concentration and my focus isn't nearly what it is when I'm in the zone or playing my game in business. But there shouldn't be many of those when I'm not able to give full out. And I need to be able to let the owner know I'm full out and I'm here. Sometimes we want businesses to be at our own convenience. We want them to be comfortable. Just because our industry isn't stiff doesn't mean it needs to be lazy or unprofessional. Just because we don't wear suits every day doesn't mean that it doesn't have to carry itself properly. Just because we don't wear suits every day doesn't mean that we don't focus on profit, that we don't have systems and structure in place. Some of us think that we joined this industry because we wanted to have more flexibility. Flexibility is a dangerous word sometimes because flexibility could mean in the schedule, not following systems and structure. It might be with your schedule and hours and what you're able to do, and that every day is not going to look the same, and you didn't want it to be a repetitive business. So be careful. Be careful to not get too comfortable. This expression I always say, when you get comfortable, you get stupid. And I hope I didn't offend anyone by that comment. It just is true. When you get too comfortable in anything, if you get too comfortable in your diet, if you get too comfortable in a relationship, if you get too comfortable in your home, too comfortable watching TV every night, all of a sudden you get stupid and that's all you do. So be careful. What decisions are you making right now? And what do you need to do to raise your game? I think of professional athletes and the disciplines that they have and how hard they have to work and how they have to honor their craft. You know, that some of them have been playing baseball since they were 5 years old. And you can tell when they don't love the game anymore. You can just tell it on their face. And you can also tell that when some of them still have that little boy spirit in them. Michael Jordan still looked like a little boy when he played the game. And he didn't give up easily. He wanted to play longer and longer. And if his knees would have stayed with him, he'd be playing to this day, because for the love of the game, loving his craft. I don't know if you know this, but in his contract, most of the time, professional athletes have a clause that say you are not to play the game unless it's supervised in a supervised arena. So there could be trainers there and physicians there just in case an accident should occur. And Michael said, I can't sign that. I need to have a love of the game clause that I can play anywhere, anytime a game of basketball is going on, whether it's in a local park. If I want to go up and just start shooting some hoops, I need to be able to do that. The love of the game clause. So I ask you, what is for the love of the game clause for you? How much do you love it? Are you protecting the plate every single day to make sure that you're honoring every step of this, so you're one that can be proud of your contribution to our industry, and for people, customers, teammates, owners, every level of it, that are thrilled that you made this decision for you because you love what you do, love who you do it with, and love who you do it for. We wish you, as always, only the best, and really think about our topics today of honor and reputation in your quiet time and what you can do to make changes, even if they're 10% shifts, to make a difference. Thank you so much.